Sorry, your kids in middle school?
No, they're
Oh, okay.
6 foot 2 months.
Why did I think you had an older kid?
They're tiny, tiny, tiny.
Yeah, I guess so. Wow.
To feel more protected in Brooklyn, biking around even like more protected bike lanes, right?
We'd like to see less cars on the street, more bike boulevards, and super blocks around schools and parks.
More safe bike lanes so that our children can ride on their own.
More trees by bike lanes.
I need more protected bike lanes.
Me too.
A bike park in the city for sure, where we can safely park our bike.
And also we need less trash in the bike lane.
I'd like to see more open streets near schools.
I want no more double parking so that biking drivers shouldn't turn into the bike lane.
I would love to see more awareness around cycling rules and safety.
I'd love to see mopeds out of the bike lane, they're scary!
Keep the bike lanes clear of trash. Biking is my main mode of transportation in the city, and I think that having more protected bike lanes would help me get around more safely.
I'd like to see a more thoughtful e-bike policy here at Brooklyn's Prospect Park.
I want to bike safely in New York City. Less cars!
When I say, who bikes Brooklyn? You say, Familiesbikebrookly, and we'll do that 3 times. Who bikes Brooklyn?
Familiesbikebrookly.
Who bikes Brooklyn?
Familiesbikebrookly.
Who bikes Brooklyn?
Familiesbikebrookly.
I'm an organizer, so I tend to turn things into a rally whenever possible. Good evening, my name is Kathy, and I'm proud to be the Brooklyn organizer for Transportation Alternatives. Welcome to our Families Bike Brooklyn panel, a conversation about the needs and future of families that bike in Brooklyn. Judging by this awesome crowd, you can see a lot of people care deeply about making family biking safe. Thank you to our friends at Brooklyn Public Library for hosting us, our moderator and panelists, our speakers, TA staff and volunteers, our board members, advisory council, everyone who's listed in the program. And most importantly, our Brooklyn activists who fight for safe streets in Brooklyn every day. We'll hear welcome remarks from a few special guests. First up, please welcome David Wallach, Executive Vice President of External Affairs at Brooklyn Public Library.
Thank you, Kathy. On behalf of my colleagues here at the library, we're just thrilled to welcome you here to the Dweck Center, to Central Library, and it's great after a couple of years of the pandemic to see folks coming back and to see this room almost full, and it's probably going to be full within a few minutes. I got to say, Kathy, what a great job pulling this together, and what an amazing panel. Looking forward to hearing from them. I actually used to work at the Department of Transportation before coming to BPL, and it's great to see folks who've really been in the trenches for years and years, working on these issues, working to promote biking, to make our borough safer, and to make the city safer for cycling. It's particularly appropriate for the library to host a discussion like this. We are part of the public realm, and we're a free, safe, and welcoming space for everybody. Everybody should feel comfortable walking through these doors, and similarly, our streets should be the same. A public space where everyone should feel comfortable, where we're all protected, where we all feel safe, particularly our children as they're walking and as they're biking. So as much progress has been made in recent years. There's still a lot more that can be done to improve the cycling experience here in Brooklyn. And we're just really excited here to be able to host this discussion and looking forward to hearing everything that gets talked about tonight. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. And let's get on with the show.
Now please welcome to the stage council member who has declared that street safety is her office's #1 priority, District 39 council member Shahana Hanif.
Can we give a big round of applause to Kathy for her pride? Good evening, everyone. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif, and I'm so thrilled that we are utilizing the library for this timely, important discussion, and I'm really interested in what our panelists have to share. I want to first just acknowledge and say her name, Sarah Schick, was killed by a box truck driver in my district in Gowanus along the 9th Street, very dangerous 9th Street corridor. And so this has been the issue of street safety, cyclist safety, pedestrian safety, of course, is on my mind every single day. As Kathy mentioned, that this is the single most issue that FISA, our Constituent Services Director, that we hear about as an office on any given day. And as a result of that, we've been meeting with Brooklyn Commissioner Keith Bray on a monthly basis and dedicated last week's monthly meeting with Senator Bernardis and Assemblywoman Joanne Simon to discuss the short and long-term plans for the 9th Street corridor. I am pushing for a protected bike lane. I'm pushing for a corridor-wide, an aggressive corridor-wide safety plan, and really look forward to working in close collaboration with the DOT, with Transportation Alternatives, and all other stakeholders, including Katie from Principal's Coffee Shop. We just hung out almost 2 hours ago in the coffee shop, which is adjacent to where the death occurred. And so really looking forward to our upcoming, on Friday, we're doing a walkthrough, which may become a bike through tour of this corridor and really experience directly just how dangerous this corridor has been and that we expeditiously need improvements immediately. Many of you might know I am a lupus survivor, and so riding through Brooklyn has never been easy. I don't cycle, and when I do cycle, I do so with groups. And so I was really proud to join TA's family ride in Prospect Park, where I had just recently gotten my left hip replaced for the second time as a lupus survivor, and decided that if I'm going to do this, I got to use an e-bike. And the City Bike e-bike, the new fleet, really made it easy. But of course, you might know that e-bikes are banned in Prospect Park. And so together with, right, that should really upset everybody. Together with council members Rita Joseph and Crystal Hudson, we wrote a letter before the end of 2022 asking Commissioner Donahue of Parks to present us with a policy that is thoughtful and looks out for the safety of e-bike users. We know that e-bike users are families. We know that there was an incident when a family on a cargo bike was about to get ticketed $150 for riding through Prospect Park, and your advocacy helped prevent that, but it brought awareness to the fact that e-bikes are not permitted in Prospect Park. And that this also impacts delivery workers. So many of our immigrant workforce utilize delivery to get food delivered to us. And they've been tagged as essential workers, and it's only right that we come up with a thoughtful policy that really addresses these needs. And so I'm going to continue to push to make sure that e-bikes are not banned from Prospect Park, but that we are utilizing a policy that is inclusive of all riders in the park. And that is going to need to include signage and lighting and all sorts of mechanisms to improve the way we ride in Prospect Park. And I'll just end by saying that we're also working closely with the DOT. They've got a program set up to bring awareness to our delivery worker community on their rights and safety protocols. And so in district, we are about to begin some sessions with delivery workers. We've got a huge workforce of Bangladeshi and Latinx workers who live in the district, and I'm making a commitment to making sure that these workers know their rights and that we're advocating for more for this sector of workers. And lastly, Denver has modeled an e-bike rebate program that's been successful. And at the state level, we've got Assemblymember Bobby Carroll and Senator Julia Salazar who've got legislation that would bring us a rebate program for e-bikes, 50% off on bikes $1,100 or less. And I support that. I'm looking forward to seeing what the council could do, but you can count on me for working towards a rebate program similar to Denver. And I've noticed that Washington, D.C. council members are also looking to implement a program there. So this is good policy. This works. We've got to do everything in our power to reduce our carbon emission and acknowledge that electric micromobility is the future of the city. So let's do everything in our power to make sure that it's safe, that no one is dying, no more traffic fatalities, and that this is the future of New York City. Thank you all so much, and looking forward to hearing from you. The letter we sent to Commissioner Donahue is at the table, at the TA table outside. We want a copy of it, and also my business cards. In case you want to get in touch, want to make sure that you have my contact. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Councilmember. Next up is our Brooklyn's youngest cycling advocate. Kaide Nardi is an 11-year-old sixth grader, and she's been biking to school since she was in the 3rd grade. Please welcome Kaide Nardi.
Part of my life since I was 4. It has been an important connection between me and my dad, and when I was first learning to ride, I was always scared to ride my bike, and I would hold on to the brakes for dear life, and at the end of every ride, my hands would turn red. Biking is a great outdoor activity, and I enjoy it with my family and friends. Now I ride to school alone every day on my bike. My bike route is safe because most of it is a connected bike lane on Prospect Park West. But I know that this is not the case for most of the city, and I'm lucky to have such a safe road to my school. Protected bike lanes and safe bike lanes are, in general, are a privilege a lot of us overlook. But bike safety is a very important conversation, and I'm so glad that we're talking about it. I especially think the idea of having protected bike lane system around Brooklyn makes a lot of sense. Bike lanes have an enormous impact on a kid's experience of bike riding, since it's hard to move around the city and to go places when there's big patches with no bike lanes or with bad bike lanes. An example of a bad bike lane is bike lane on Bedford Avenue. On the map, it's a thick green line, but it turns out to be a dangerous bike lane that leads around a lot of cars. I accidentally rode on that bike lane when I was going to my Japanese class. But it was so dangerous, and now when we go to Japanese class, I prefer to use a road that has no bike lanes, and that says something. I hope this conversation inspires a lot of you to make biking safer.
Thank you.
Finally, please help me welcome the Executive Director of Transportation Alternatives, the advocacy organization that has led the movement for better walking, biking, and public transit in New York City for 50 years. Please welcome Danny Harris.
I think we all know who the next Executive Director of Transportation is. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank our esteemed panel. I want to thank the council member. I stand here not only honored to be the Executive Director of TA, I'm the father of 3 kids at 6, 4, and 3 months now. And so I am in the wonderful process of watching freedom, as many of you, there are children in here, there are other parents, but when you watch your child crawl the first time, when you watch them take the first step, and now my oldest is sort of at that stage where I'm letting go of the bicycle as we ride around in the park. And I feel so incredibly fortunate to be in this role and to work with all of you to advocate for safe bike infrastructure. And it breaks my heart every day that when I take this beautiful child of mine and I put her in the park, I know that she can't ride further than the secure gates of the parking of the park in her house. And this is the reality of so many children in New York City, is that we give our children these first incredible breaths of freedom, to crawl, to walk, to bike, and then unfortunately the city can't meet that invitation for our children to be able to ride and experience that freedom in the city. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to grow up in a place where you could ride your bike, but just what an incredible gift that is to give to our children. And it's not only that they can go and experience the city, it's that the air that they breathe is cleaner, it's that they can get away from video games, it's that they can go and sort of experience this wonderful place and meet other people. And so that's what it is that we're trying to do, is ultimately when we create streets for people, and especially for our most vulnerable, when we create them for children, it makes it better for absolutely everybody. I can assure you that when a city works for children, for a 6-year-old who wants to ride a bike, it works when you are 80 and you may have trouble walking. It works when you have limited abilities. It works for the most vulnerable among us. And so that is our goal, and that is what we will strive every day to make happen. And I'm so honored to be with all of you. And again, Kathy. Kathy deserves and I just, before I step down, if you are a staff member of TA, can you put your hand up so we can recognize you as well? Thank you. Remind the fight. Come join us. We gather in quiet moments like this. We gather to yell, but we always gather to move the city forward. So thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you to our guests for their leadership, inspiring messages, and calls to action. We just echo what Annie just said, which is when our streets are safe enough for our families, they're safe enough for everyone. And now we're excited to get to the panel portion of our program. A few months ago, I was chatting with Brian Russo, who did so much to reclaim streets for walking, biking, and public transit as a former DOT leader.
Here, here.
Sorry?
I said here, here.
Oh.
Sorry.
And I had an idea about having a robust discussion centering family biking, something I hadn't heard about in this kind of forum. His enthusiasm matched mine, and I think my next question was, would you moderate the panel? He said yes, and since then we've worked hand in hand to create this program with an all-star lineup to advocate for safer streets in Brooklyn. Thank you, Ryan, for your partnership, and I turn the program over to you.
Thank you so much. All right, here we go with the moderation portion. Hopefully the mics have turned on. Have they turned on? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, first off, thank you, Kathy. Like to say partnership, you ever hear of a 5% partnership? I'm the 5%, getting about 50% of the credit. So thank you for doing all this incredible organizing. And it's already been a wonderful evening, so I feel like I could just wrap up and we can go, right? So I'm Ryan Russo. I am having the privilege of moderating tonight's panel, and I did spend a number of years at the New York City Department of Transportation working to develop the city's bike network. And just a bit, there was a moment that this event makes me think of when we developed the first parking protected bike lane, like the ones that were only in Europe, on the other side of the parked cars on 9th Avenue between 23rd Street and 16th Street in 2007. We put that in the ground. It was sort of mind-blowing. I went out to take pictures of the users right in Manhattan, and a parent presumably came biking down the side street, and turned onto the 9th Avenue parking protected bike lane. And trailing her was about a 7-year-old girl on a bicycle in Manhattan on a street. And it was like discovering like a species that didn't exist in the wild. And it really, I snapped that picture standing on a scaffolding, and I showed everyone immediately, put it in every PowerPoint that we had, because the power that family cycling has is really exponentially different than, sorry to say, like single dudes in their 20s who grew up in Ohio and came here for an accounting job. And so, because you really, this is really a tremendous moment, and I think we have the exponential ability to build momentum around this really important movement at this point in time. Because of a few things. One, e-bikes. We heard the council member talk about e-bikes. The widespread proliferation of different varieties of bicycles with electric assist, allowing families to bring not just their children, but their children and their groceries along with them, to make cycling that much more useful to a family this moment is tremendous, that we need to take advantage of, and other cities are. And ultimately, you don't hear politicians give speeches about how they want to help that single person. They always want to help families. And if families are cycling, people will notice, the momentum will build. And so it's a tremendous moment. We're really excited. And we're hoping with this panel, we chart a course. We get some specific actions that we can get to work together on, whether that's advocates, whether that's you and your community, whether that's government, our elected officials, our agency leaders, so that we can all work together to provide the safe streets that we need. So let's get into it, and we do have quite an amazing panel. Your programs have our panelists' bios. I won't read the whole bio. I'll give a quick intro, and then we'll get into it. We do have a closing time at the library, so I will give brief introductions for our panelists. First, I'd like to welcome our borough president, Antonio Reynoso. So many of you know Borough President Reynoso, born and raised with his two sisters in South Williamsburg to Dominican immigrants. He's a progressive leader, but we all know that progressive leaders can be progressive on everything but transportation sometimes. Antonio's been progressive on everything and transportation from the beginning. We've seen his leadership around cycling, around public transit, around pedestrian safety. He lives in Williamsburg and is qualified for this panel because of his two sons, age 2 and 5, and we have a wide variety of ages here. Second, I'd like to introduce Shiva Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us. Shiva is a ride leader for the East Brooklyn Bike Club and a mother of 2 boys who are 12 and 14. Shiva is really passionate about representing underrepresented communities in the cycling community, and we all know that the Brooklyn Bike Network has not developed evenly. The East Brooklyn Bike Club was established in May 2022 to provide access for cycling for members of the East Brooklyn community. She was also a member of several bike clubs. I've never claimed several bike clubs. Good Company Bike Club, the Century Plus Crew, MBR Cycling, and if I left any out, let me know. Thank you for joining us. We also have with us Emily Stutz.
Yeah, Emily.
Emily's a special education teacher at PS 372. She has experience planning the physical bike education programming for her school community, including Bike to School Day, on her own. It's not like it's a DOE program.
It's a collaborative opportunity, though.
with incredible leadership from you. And then I love this. If you're on Bike Twitter, we all know about bike buses. I was living in Oakland the last 5 years. We had a bike bus. Cities have bike buses, but Brooklyn has a bike train. And Emily has organized the Bergen Bike Train on Wednesday mornings, so kids and families from all over Brooklyn can bike to school safely. Thank you for joining us, Emily. And then we have Chief of Staff Ryan Lynn, Chief of Staff of the New York City Department of He is Chief of Staff to Commissioner Adonis Rodriguez, and before joining New York City DOT, he was Deputy Chief of Staff of Operations for Mayor Eric Adams and Chief of Staff to then Borough President Adams. And you might not know that Ryan has been a transportation advocate who's associate director at Tri-State Transportation Campaign, which has the unenviable task of trying to get places like where I grew up, Mineola, Long Island, suburban New Jersey, to like invest in transit, walking, and biking. So he's fought some tough fights and has a son aged 8 and a daughter aged 5. Did I get that right? So thank you to our panel. What we're going to do is we have a few questions that I'll ask. We'll go around, and then TA is collecting cards of questions that you have. So we'll also have some questions from the audience, and then we'll have a lightning round. So here's how I want to start. So so many of us love biking because it's so joyful, right? It's just it has so many benefits, and we advocate for it because we think, it'll do everything to save the planet, save people money, save you time, convenience. You don't have to wait for the bus. There's so many benefits, but family biking in particular. Let's bring out like what really has brought you to family cycling. Why are you passionate about it? Why do you think that we should be talking about this issue? And if you were advocating to a family that doesn't bike, what would you say is why they should think about getting on? What are the top benefits for you? So let's start with our borough president to kick us off.
Testing. Okay, thank you so much. So happy to be here. Kathy, we love you. Brooklyn, I love you. So I want to be honest. I think it would be great to have a bike network in which we can feel comfortable and safe and being able to travel with our families, but for too many, it's not the case. While I am an avid bike rider and care deeply about cycling, my wife not so much. She thinks it's a death sentence, right? She's like, I don't want you on this, get a car, get a driver. I had my first year as a borough president and had no driver. And you were in Borough Hall. And that's a very difficult thing to do in Brooklyn. I was out to Coney Island, to Canarsie on my bike or on train. And I want to get my kids involved. I want to put them in the back or in the front of a bike and take them to school and so forth. My wife just won't allow me. So I have a long-term goal here. Is to convince her that the streets are safe enough for our kids to be on a bike with me. And my wife is somebody that pays attention to things, and it's not somebody that's this is foreign to. But for her in Williamsburg, which has an expansive bike network, probably arguably one of the best bike networks in all of Brooklyn, she still feels it's not safe. So I, alongside the Department of Transportation, the folks here in this room, want to have that conversation about how we can eventually feel safe enough that we don't need to worry about our kids' lives when we try to take them to school and other places. So I do want to say that I'm part of a group trying to make that happen.
I want to ask Shiva. So why? Why bike? Why do your kids bike? Why do you bike? Why are you in 4 or 5 different bike clubs?
This is work.
Yeah.
I actually started cycling with my kids during COVID. The parks, I don't know if you remember, during quarantine, a lot of the parks closed. And my main priority was health, so vitamins, activity, especially given that they were staying home for much of the day, every day. So I got a folding bike, and they already had bikes, and we would ride the mile to the nearest open park so they could play at the park and then ride back. And I remember I had considered getting a bike like years before and having a wagon in the back with them, and I was just terrified. I had looked at all of the different bikes and all the different wagons, and I was terrified to ride on New York City streets myself. So the idea of bringing my kids out there just felt like we're all gonna die. So during COVID, the streets were quieter, they were safer, and we got into that habit of biking. And I started biking on my own and kind of fell in love with the idea of discovering different parts of the city that I had never seen before, that I didn't know existed, and that looked completely different. And I want that for my kids. I also want them to be more active, especially after COVID. Having been online for school and socializing for about a year and a half, trying to get them back outside and get them active, and doing something that I love and we can do together is important.
Awesome. The togetherness is one of my top benefits. Emily, how about you? You're organizing in your schools, the Bergen bike train. Like, why? Why do you think more people should bike? Why are you doing this?
I mean, I think, for me, it's really just seeing kids be able to use their bodies and their voices and feel empowered. And when you're biking with kids, you can really see that. Kylie, my stepdaughter, she's 15. She just learned to ride last summer. And when she was learning, there was a point where she didn't want to learn from us at that point. She's a teen. She doesn't want to hear it. And she was told by the instructor to, go 1, 2, 3, glide, and then scream at the top of her lungs. She's a really quiet kid, but being on the bike gave her that sense that she could really do that. She could scream at the top of her lungs. She could experience that freedom. And I think that the bike is a tool that can do that. Seeing in the Bergen bike train, seeing kids from 4 years old biking themselves 4 miles to get to school, that's something that can only happen with a bike. And as terrifying as it is sometimes to see her out there, we wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want it any other way. If she wants to do that and she can, she should be allowed to do that. She should have a space where she can.
Awesome. Thank you. So Ryan, you personally have been biking with your children, and now you have this opportunity to sort of be part of a city agency. Why does the New York City DOT believe that getting more families on bikes is good for the borough?
Hello. It's not just good for the borough, it's good for the city. So, citywide approach to this. But it's important because if you're looking at children riding a bicycle, I would always view them as indicator species of a healthy bike network. So getting more and more people out of their cars into sustainable modes of transportation is not only good for the environment, it's good for the economy, and it's good for mobility in our city. It's good for public safety. It's good for a whole host of different things. I got into transportation because I felt like it was a linchpin for everything around it: education, housing, public safety, economic development. All these different things are a linchpin for transportation is a linchpin for that. So being able to be in an agency that actually you walk down the street and you're like, oh, I helped get that bike lane done, so that child can bike to school, or that my wife can bike to Maimonides Hospital, where she's a midwife, which how she gets around, or a child can feel empowered and confident to ride in their neighborhood. The best feeling I've ever had in my entire life was watching my son take off by himself on a bike and literally jump off and just jump up in the air and scream out loud, I did it. It's really a confidence booster for our young people. So improving our cycling network allows them to do that in a real meaningful way. So I get to go to work every day, and I get to help advance that little by little in every neighborhood and across the city.
Awesome. So that's the positive. We've got to shift a little bit to the barriers. Like, why isn't this happening? Why isn't every family?
And I have to leave now.
So this is called the hot seat for Ryan. Look up. I think we'll start here and move over. But seriously, personally, it was, as someone who built a lot of the bike lanes, it was kind of, Oakland, where I lived the last 5 years, was quite quiet streets, and my kids could bike on many of them in a lot of different places, and they've actually lost some independence in coming back to Brooklyn, and that's eating at me, and it means the city has to do more. It means that there's too many cars, and as much as we want to promote, we know that your partner is not necessarily irrational, and we should mention, like the council member did, that Sarah Schick was struck and killed just this, last week, and I get nauseous thinking about parents, children losing their parents, someone I don't even know, and it's an unimaginable horror, and none of us want to see that happen. So, and not enough of us feel safe out there to do this. So, what other specific needs for families cycling on our streets, the kinds of streets that you've seen maybe in your travels, maybe in one neighborhood that there should be more of. So Emily, you're leading many children biking on one street. Like you talk to them. What kind of street would they see? Is it but the bike lanes? Is there a wider bike lane? Wave your wand. What should we be doing in Brooklyn?
I think a lot of kids just want to see fewer cars on the street. I mean, when you look at the scale of cars compared to kids, it's not a fair fight in any way. And so kids want things like slip and slides and spaces where they can bike and places where they can play in the streets. And I think that would be a beautiful way forward.
Yeah, so like bike boulevard concepts where cars are severely restricted except for local access. I should have mentioned in the intro remarks that one of the reasons why this is a great moment is the pandemic with open streets has really shown the way. More people walking and biking, and I think got a lot of people onto the mode. Bike sales exploded, and light traffic streets were a big reason why people were comfortable, and unfortunately we're kind of back and away from those light traffic streets. Shiva, how about you? You bike in East New York, and now you're discovering different neighborhoods. I know you kind of observed some disparities in different neighborhoods. Talk about what you'd like to see and even where you'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think similarly, when I bike with my children, it's about space. A lot of times, even when I bike on bike lanes, the amount of space that's allotted to the lane is not wide enough to avoid car doors opening and the cars on the street. And sometimes my kids are even scared to bike on bike lanes. And there have definitely been times where I've had to kind of take the lane of traffic to make sure that my kids are safe as we're riding together. And a big challenge with that is that a lot of drivers don't know the rules for cycling. They don't know that we can take a lane if it's not safe, and they don't know sometimes even that I'm supposed to be on the street and not on the sidewalk. So I think that's a big part of it too, is the awareness of drivers, but also just having more space for our adults and children.
Awesome. Is there, in the neighborhoods that you ride, is there a particular place the space you think could come from? Is it there parked cars everywhere, double parked cars, lanes of traffic? What do you got?
I mean, we've got double parked cars, but I specifically am thinking about Saratoga Avenue. It's a 2-lane street, and there's not really enough space even for 2 lanes of traffic. And biking on Saratoga is the challenge for me, but with my kids, I always just take a whole lane. But that feels very scary, I think, for me and for them.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that is the safest thing to do. Taking that lane, you've got that right to the lane. Unfortunately, not everyone is aware that you have the right to the lane, and our motorists don't necessarily give the space that you should have when you do take it. Okay, so now here we have our policymakers, who have some power and authority to help us get there. The borough president's office, been a champion. I'm sure you hear people who say we should never do congestion pricing. I know your office has been a champion of congestion pricing, bike lanes, sustainable transportation. How can you take things to the next level in your advocacy so that more families in Brooklyn can choose this mode?
So I think the first thing we need to do is be comfortable, or the city needs to be comfortable, with just taking over streets, complete streets, and normalizing that. Right? We have the West Side Highway in Manhattan, that's north to south, and I think it's the most used bike lane in the entire country. And it's because it's safe, it's because it's dedicated. That's north to south. We have a dedicated street that gets east to west in Manhattan, for example. We don't have that. And if we're serious about cycling and moving people away from the dependence on vehicles, we need to show people that have vehicles that we're taking this infrastructure seriously and do bold things, not just things that are We've had conversations when I was a council member on taking over Bedford Avenue and turning it into a pedestrian bike lane, or Berry Street and turning the whole thing into a bus lane, bike lane, and pedestrian, like Fulton Street, without any cars coming left to right. We've had those conversations, and they just don't move, right? What we have is this incremental movements of adding 1 mile at a time or half a mile at a time. That's just not gonna convince people that are not cyclists that we take it seriously. It's almost like a burden on the Department of Transportation in the city to have these bike lanes. We mandated to do 20 miles a year. Where are we gonna find this? Instead of it being a real plan where we can actually commit to it and do it boldly, just take over streets is what I think we should be doing. And I'm here with Commissioner Keith Bray's here, and he always tells me we need all the political power that we can to make sure we can make this happen, Antonio, because they struggle with elected officials and community boards and give the Department of Transportation a hard time. So what I've been doing is I've been very particular about who's on the community board. And we've added the most amount of cyclists in the community board this last year to the new if we added a question, how do you move around this city? And putting cycling would help you out. So one, everyone here, put that you're a part of TA, put that you're a cyclist on your application, and that will help you become a community board member in Brooklyn. So we're also systematically also making sure that we're so I said one, two things. I got your back. You do something bold in Brooklyn, I will have your back. I'll expend political capital. And on the community board, making sure that I appoint folks that understand cycling and understand that we got to take care of pedestrians first, and cars last. So that's
awesome. We might have a couple of nominees for community boards. We might have some not busy people here. Maybe take one cycling club off the list. Join the community board. Just food for thought. Ryan, my fellow Ryan, New York City DOT, we know such a great team working so hard, trying to get the bike lanes on the ground. Specifically to families, how can we, what kinds of streets, what's in the toolbox, what are we seeing, what can we do, what's DOT doing to get this really rolling?
Yeah, and I want to note that the borough president says I got your back, and he actually stands up and does you have your back. We came out to Emmons Avenue, put out 2 miles of protected bike lane. That was not an easy project. And the guy leading the charge on the inaugural bike ride was Borough President Rooms. So it's really important to highlight that it's not just not verbal. He's actually out there on the ground, hitting the ground running with us. So we appreciate it. Thank you. And before I was remiss, you mentioned Keith, the Borough Commissioner Keith Bryce here. I want to give a shout out. And Kim Wiley Shorts, Assistant Commissioner of Education, is here as well as our press people. Make me not sound like an idiot. But in terms of what you're talking about, what we want to do as an agency, we want to be bold, but we do need the political support in order to make those things happen. We will continue to be innovative and aggressive in ensuring that our streets are safe. We're trying to do that with bike boulevards, with protected bike lanes. We talked a little bit about when I was with the borough president, the other borough president, bike superhighways, identifying locations for bike superhighways. We currently have a federal grant that we applied for to try to see if we can look at Conduit Boulevard to actually see what we could do to reconnect the community through Conduit Boulevard in Queens. But there's different ways, the bike boulevards, the 34th Avenue project in Queens connects 5 different schools along it. It's the premier project of open streets in the city. We want to do that everywhere. We're trying to push protected bike lanes to get over the finish line in East New York this year. So we'd love to have your voice and support in those. So it's really about using the toolbox that we have that we know works and deploying it equitably across the city. And that's we know how to get it done. It's a matter of pushing the projects forward, getting them with community and elected official voices there to support.
Awesome. I want to just stay on here a little bit. Like, this is a choir. We're preaching to it, right? This just needs to be said. And we all know how hard it is when we get out in a broader conversation. And I think we hear a lot, but everybody agrees the city would be better if there were less cars. But Brooklynites right now, with the pandemic, whether that's concerns of catching disease in public transit, concern of your personal security, concern that it's not going to be reliable. Brooklynites have bought more cars. They're in the streets, and they're what's keeping people from feeling safe to getting out there. We've got congestion pricing coming along, but ultimately, kind of the less cars, we know would be helpful, but there are people who believe in their day-to-day lives that they've made a rational decision, and once they've made that sort of purchase and choice, it's there. So how, is there more we can do? Can we be more sophisticated in the conversation? Can we be more clear? Like, it's easy, we can throw out the red meat here, but like, how do we really have that tough conversation, maybe in an empathetic and compassionate way with our constituents so that we can keep the buses moving, keep the bikes safe? Borough President, you have any thoughts on that?
They did make a good decision because the city supports that type of purchase, right? It's like, oh, you bought a car, this is the best city for it, and we're gonna help you out. We're gonna let you run through bus lanes, you can double park on bike lanes, you're gonna be the privilege of having a car in this city is amazing. So why not purchase a car? We have to move away from that, and the way to do that is by just really building out spaces that make it so that they feel uncomfortable. And I'm not saying uncomfortable in purchasing a vehicle, it's just that they don't own everything, or this culture, this car culture, we start breaking it by showing people where they are allowed to be and where they're not allowed to be. The reason I got inspired to do anything related to this, I had a car, a really nice car that I liked when I was younger. I had a 2006 Infiniti G35 Coupe. I thought I was the coolest kid on the block. Then I went to a kids ride club from Woodhull Hospital with Dr. Fishkin, and he was taking these kids around, and they had an annual kids summit, bike summit, and they brought Enrique Peñalosa, who was the mayor of Bogota, Colombia. And what he did is first he towed all the cars. He just towed every single car, and he almost got assassinated by it. But he towed all the cars. And then after that, he built a bus network. And what he did is that he blocked it off. So there was protected bus lanes. And he had traffic at a standstill. If you had a car at a standstill, these buses were driving, he said specifically 70, 80, and 90 miles an hour. He was like, I want them fast. And I want them moving. And anybody that's sitting in a car is sitting in a car, seeing these buses just fly by. It's like, oh, this is not a place where you should have a car. And this bus is right there moving this quickly. And I just feel like until car drivers don't see that, they're not going to move out. Right now, you move faster than a bus in a car. It's easy, absolutely. There's double parking that prevents the bus from taking the bus lane. And so we're going to start building dedicated spaces for everything outside of vehicles. It is a good and smart decision for somebody to have a car in New York. And that is an unfortunate thing, but it is a reality. This city is built for them, not for us. And we need to start changing that.
So there's the push. Now a little bit more on the pull into this mode and this movement. So we need safe streets. It's like the baseline. I mean, you don't have to pull, but people need to feel safe. It's a necessary but not sufficient condition. There are other barriers that people experience here. One is that if it's family biking, it might need to be e-biking. My kids got too heavy for my extra cycle, with just my legs, and I needed an electric assist bike. But those were running $5,000, and there's folks who spend their $5,000, they need a car, and they don't have another $5,000 sitting around for an e-bike. There's where you park it and worrying about it getting stolen. Will the police, if you register it, will it be found if it's stolen? There's the gear you have to wear. There's the gear for the kids, keeping the kids dry and wet. The fact that we have a lot of walk-ups. So let's talk about some of the other barriers and what we could maybe do about them. We heard about Denver and other cities that are getting on in the game of subsidies. Let's just hear from all our panelists. Emily, let's start with you. What barriers do you think we really need to address, and any ideas for addressing them other than our street design?
Yeah, I mean, a big obvious one is the e-bike subsidy. We ended up buying an e-bike and then sold our car right afterwards. We did have a car in Brooklyn because it was super convenient to have a car in Brooklyn. But buying the e-bike was a total car replacement, but a subsidy would have helped us immensely. Like, our e-bike went on my credit card and then paid it off over time. Like, a our payment plan. But I also think having those safe places to park, I think especially like an easy win is putting up more like bike parking at schools so that when kids can bike with their families, they can bike more independently and then they have somewhere to put their bikes once they get there. So many schools don't have any bike parking. How can we expect for kids to bike themselves? And then it puts less of the burden on the parents.
Yeah. Awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Shiva, how about you? You know, what barriers, what are the top barriers, you know, that stand in the way from you think more folks in that you know getting on bikes?
I would say the cost of cycling in general, the cost of the bikes, the gear, all of that. And when you have a family, it becomes more than just a cost for yourself. You now have to buy for 2, 3, 4 family members in order to ride together. So that is, I think, a big barrier for a lot of people.
Awesome. And Ryan, you know, what do you hear around? What's your sense that New Yorkers need in addition to safely designed streets to get more folks on, more families on bikes?
So I think the first and foremost is the safely designed streets, but secure bike parking is one of the things that we prioritized last year at the DOT. I think we put a record number of daylighting intersections with bike racks. So we're going to continue to lean into that and really lean into expanding secure bike parking across the city. It's something that we're committed to. I think the additional items that we talked a little bit about e-bikes, but the cost of the e-bikes, something that the administration supports in terms of the bill up in Albany, and really thrilled that the council member is going to be supporting that bill as well. And I believe our team at City Hall may be writing a letter in support of that bill. But yeah, it's the cost of the e-bike. I'm eager to look into an e-bike. I know as much as my daughter chanting "Go Daddy, Go Daddy" up Bedford Hill it's not doing it anymore. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to diversify mobility options. So I think it's providing a safe network. It's providing safe, secure bike storage, and it's making sure that these are options that are available to all walks of life in New York City. One of the first things I did at City Hall was to work with Senator Schumer, Mark's department, and Los Liberistas to secure funding for Deliverista hubs, where they can charge their e-bikes, where they can receive city resources and connect to city resources. It's the first project I worked on at City Hall. One of my proudest projects to work on. We got to do more of that in the city to make sure it's available to everybody.
The first one is in Williamsburg. Coming up in Williamsburg, is that the style?
Yeah, that's
that
one, and there's like a couple other old park newsstands that do it.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, one of the benefits of leaving and coming back is that things that for a local might seem like subtle change, you actually notice the starkness of the change. And I have to say, with the proliferation of micromobility devices, just electric bikes in general, we've seen just a much more representative set of folks in my neighborhood in Crown Heights getting around on 2 wheels, 3 wheels, etc. And we really want to lift up the fact that there are tens of thousands of people making a living now on electric bikes. And we heard from the council member, there's this issue in Prospect Park. There's been complaints. So Prospect Park said, no electric, no motor vehicles on the drive as a way to sort of, we did something about the complaints. And then it's like, well, what we really meant is the delivery folks and not the families with the electric assist. And then we're getting into, really being discriminatory. So we've got some, sticky things to navigate as, different variety of vehicles hit the streets. So how's the Borough President's Office sort of approaching this as both kind of an opportunity? We've got the issue with, uncertified electric bicycles, and the risk of fire, the battery issues. So it must be coming up a lot up in the office. So what's the office up to?
It is coming up a lot. I mean, I guess a thing we have to talk about is just like who has political capital and who doesn't. And that somebody in Park Slope can complain about the e-bike deliveristas, and that a policy can be put forth by the Department of Transportation to shut it down. and that happened in a very short amount of time.
In defense of foreign transportation, I think
It's not due to
Parks
DOT.
Department.
Parks Department, I said
Yeah.
Parks Department, right?
We taped it.
I actually love the Department of Transportation. No, they got folks in DOT that are like really, really good. If we just let them loose, it'll be great. But the politics people bog down. I tell you, if community boards or elected officials couldn't certify bike lanes or modify things, these guys would run wild. But they can't. The politics don't allow them. So I just want to say that I got love for DOT and the folks that are doing that work on the ground. But it's just a political capital. And building policy on it versus just doing what's right. And we should have a conversation about what is safe in Prospect Park and how we can move through that in a safe way that respects everyone. Have that conversation first and then apply a comprehensive plan as to how you're going to address it. But because of the political capital that residents in Park Slope have, especially on Prospect Park, the influence that they were able to exert to have a blanket white policy that they thought would solve the issue. And because they thought that Liberistas wouldn't have the political know-how or backing to be able to push back against it, and that no one would make noise, is what is a big problem. And we've been trying to depoliticize. We want to treat the Department of Transportation. I know this is the Department of Parks, but we want to treat the Department of Transportation the way we treat the NYPD. Council members cannot go to a precinct and say, hey, I don't want you guys doing work on this block. I need all your cops on this block. That could never happen. But with the Department of Transportation, they act like their expertise is like opinion or personal anecdotes. It's like, this bike lane doesn't work here, we should take it out. But it's like, why? Who are you? You haven't gone to school for this. You're not a planner. You have no idea what you're talking about. They do. They literally went to school and have decades of experience as to how to build these networks out. If we start as a city and our politics moving away from allowing for opinions and personal anecdotes to dictate the outcomes of our design, it would make a huge difference for families, for the Liberistas, and these moments in Prospect Park where we can shut things down like that. Because it's true, families take advantage of that. Families are the ones that need the e-bikes. I feel like I'm pretty healthy, and Prospect Park is tough. It's a tough slog going uphill sometimes. Can you imagine a family trying to encourage their kids they're gonna have to get off their bike to walk up, or you can't use your e-bike anymore specifically because of this policy, and it's discouraging. So again, let's move the politics out of it. This should be treated the same way we treat the NYPD. We don't care about your opinions, we care about the facts. These are facts. This is safer, so we will implement it. So that's a change we should deepen inside.
Yeah. Me too.
And I just like, so you're in the same office that Marty Markowitz held. So I have post-traumatic stress disorder from building the Prospect Park West bike lane with Borough President Marty Markowitz at the end of that street.
You have done a good job.
Differently.
You've done a good job. TA, Streets Park, you should be very proud of yourself. The progress we've made in politics with transportation issues from 10 years ago, 15 years ago has been remarkable. Don't think we haven't made advances. Like, we're still in the struggle, we're still fighting, but we've advanced significantly. And I'm here because of you. We've normalized this conversation. I can say it and be recorded and have no fear about whether or not I'm going to get reelected in 4 years. And that's not my concern. Right? It's about doing what's right, and I think that you did that. So, like, give yourself the credit on a standing ovation for you.
Yeah, it is remarkable. I just want to check in. We wanted to make sure we had some audience questions. Are we ready to feed me a few audience questions? I think, yeah. We could
get the mic. Since we're recording.
Okay. So let me just a little bit more of the actions and policies. We want to continue to put action going. More magic wand for you two. You're the borough president, and there's no community boards. What would you see? What would you do in your ideal? Maybe specifically around schools. What would you like to see happen really fast related to school transportation?
I gotta talk really fast for this one. I think one thing is Huge burden for families and administrators to have to apply for a school street. And I think it should just be something that kids are entitled to. That's a right for kids when they go to school. I also think that, personal plug, you mentioned east to west corridors. I think the Burgundine corridor would make an amazing bike and bus corridor. Like, for kids who are commuting, look for a bike boulevard there would be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Shiva, what would you, you're in charge.
I would think more critically, I think, about accessibility infrastructure in low-income neighborhoods. I think a lot of times things just kind of get extended. It's like, here we're putting one bike lane here for like a stretch of 4 blocks, and then you gotta figure it out. Or here we're putting city bikes, but you know, there's 2 bikes in your city bike dock, which is like a true story on my block. And I think in order for people to be able to utilize these resources and start to bike, there needs to be funding for bikes, for people to get their own bikes or to be able to access city bikes. There needs to be safe bike lanes for them to travel on, because probably similar to me when I started, before I started biking, I was terrified to bike in New York City streets. And I think also some consideration of the fact that a lot of people in low-income neighborhoods live far from the trains, and so having a car is important. And so when a city bike dock comes in, it's like you're taking away parking from people who need to have these cars in order to get around. And so having some kind of parking in the neighborhood. I know in my neighborhood, there's no public parking. There's nowhere I can pay to park my car. And so having those parking spots taken away, it ends up being double parking all along the streets at night, and that's also very unsafe for cyclists. So I think considering all of the factors and not just trying to like put a Band-Aid on the issues.
Some audience questions. They're not gonna be as nice to you.
We have a question related to Shiva's comment about piecemeal bike lanes. What is the process for deciding where to put a protected bike lane? It seems random. Is there a master plan? Who decides how long? What determines the timing?
We asked our DOT rep to speak to that.
So it's a very long process. It's something that starts generally out of the streets master plan that was adopted in 2019, I believe. Our team, Keith's here, our team works with communities and community boards and stakeholders to identify particular areas. So we're seeing data-driven challenges. So those are, high crash areas, high fatality areas, and identifying the ways where we can improve the geometric design of the street. I'm not an engineer, but it's essentially just a planning process that generate an idea. You're going to the community stakeholders, the elected officials, to provide feedback on what it would look like, and then a year later it would be built. So it's a very long process that we're always trying to improve upon. But I don't know, you were the guy that did this more than me. So
well, I'll just say, it may seem long in New York City, but a year is damn fast for compared to around the country. There's really as piecemeal as it can be. New York City is definitely putting out because of its operational toolkit that it's developed. A lot of these projects faster than a lot of places. There's a lot of barriers for local governments to get things done right now all across the country. There's vacancy crisis. It's hard to keep folks on the team if you don't have a great team, or you don't have people to do the work. How's the work going to get done? So that's another really important factor. All right, what else do we have from the audience?
We've got several questions about the Bergen bike train and cycling education, and cycling is part of education. So how do I get a bike train at my school? How can cycling become a part of public education, like PE class, curriculum? And how can parents get organized, like at the start of Bergen bike train at their own school?
I I think you just do it. Like text some parents that are there, talk to your principal. I think a lot of times principals are really excited to have programs. So not a one-time event, but something that really becomes a part of the fabric of the school, a fabric of the community. And so, like really take that lead. I mean, Chris, you've started it in Greenpoint now for your kids' school. There are so many people who are interested, and it really just takes that one person to make that connection with other people who want to be part of it too. And then there is a law in New York that says that cycling education should be part of school curriculum. And so be that person making that push. There are so many great programs out there that you can access. Hit me up. I'll send a list.
I want to give a plug because I'm also a teacher, and at the school where I work, Bike New York has a great program, and they offer bike mechanics class for after school for our students. And I'm always like, I'll volunteer to help out with that class anytime. So that's also, I think I'd love to see that expanded and brought into other schools.
And I would just add that our assistant commissioner, Kim Wiley Schwartz, is in charge of all of our bike education, our coordination with the DOE. We are doubling the number of schools I think that we're in this year for and restoring the bike fleets to 7th graders. So you can learn to ride a bike, you can learn the rules of the road. And we, just in the preliminary budget, there's an allocation of $74 million for new Safe Routes to School funding. It's capital funding. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see that in the budget, but we're also able to hire a couple more people to do the work and double the work. So if you ever want to do that at your school or at your child's school, talk to Kim. She's the guru of all those things at DOT.
Great, thank you. There are a couple of questions that are about pedestrians, especially. It's about how we can ensure that, especially bikes and e-bikes, we're ensuring that the most vulnerable users stay protected on our streets, especially on sidewalks. So, welcome your thoughts on that.
Why don't we ask the borough president to talk a little bit? You might hear about pedestrians who, why do you support bikes so much? And they're zipping around. I don't feel safe crossing the street.
I want to be clear. This is not easy. I'm from Williamsburg, largely Latino community, who does not get why I love bikes so much. So I'm pitching it and sending it every time. My barbershop conversations are intense. I would say this. I think another thing we can do, and it's a state issue, is we need to start educating people that a bike is closer to a pedestrian than it is a vehicle. Right? And I don't think people know that. And when you do that, cars start respecting, I guess, you would hope cars would never get on the sidewalk. We know that's not true. They get on sidewalks all the time. But everyone in New York City can agree that cars on sidewalks are a terrible thing, and it should never happen. When a bike is getting on a sidewalk, they would only do it because it's dangerous. When a car is getting on a sidewalk, they do it for convenience and because they think that they own the world. A bike is doing it. There's no way you're getting on a sidewalk because you're doing it for your safety. You don't go down Bedford Avenue with all those double parked cars, all those car doors open at any random time. It's a very dangerous thing to do. You'd have to take a lane, a vehicle lane, or ride the sidewalk. Those are the only two safe spaces and opportunities you have. And because that infrastructure is not there, you end up getting yourself in trouble and riding on the sidewalk. But I think both for pedestrians, to educate pedestrians and let them know, look at a cyclist and a bike lane the way you would look at a sidewalk and a pedestrian. And we can build allies in like the pedestrian community, I guess. And I think it also helps cyclists as well. If they understand, you gotta look at yourself like a pedestrian. And we have to do more. We have to do better because there is a culture that just has us zipping through a lot of these streets. I'm guilty of that sometimes. I move around my bike and I could care less about vehicles, and I purposefully, do what I gotta do to keep myself safe, and doing so break some laws that I don't think help me. But if we had the infrastructure, and we educated people, I think we could really start having pedestrians be on our side in protect themselves and us.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask Ryan, build on the question a little bit. I remember when we're in this, people see the outcome, and it might be a DoorDash delivery person going the wrong way or on the sidewalk, and ultimately they're being held accountable by these venture capital funded apps that are saying get someone's food there super fast. And when before there even were these apps, Kim, we worked on the commercial cycling helmet law, and we held it was restaurants. Restaurants actually delivered the foods before the apps, and we held them accountable whether they bought a helmet for their cyclists or not. Is there any kind of policy like that, Ryan, that we're kind of building back that we could kind of, systemically, rather than kind of right at the outcome of, I see an electric moped or a gas moped going the wrong way, and I hate these things, and thus don't build bike lanes. I know you get that argument. Like, what can we do policy-wise around this issue?
We need to build more bike lanes. We also,
He means to.
we're building more bike lanes. You create the infrastructure so you can put people in the right rational mode of transportation. When you built the Prospect Park West bike lane, I believe 80% of sidewalk riding one way, right? So you build the infrastructure and people start to use the infrastructure the right way with education, signage, everything. At the same time, we have a burgeoning micromobility movement in New York City. And that's a good thing for the city. It's a good thing for mobility. We had a great pilot program in the Bronx and East Bronx on e-scooters. We're looking to expand that program. We have an interagency micromobility task force at City Hall that's working on all these issues, whether it's safety, enforcement, et cetera. We're working together to frame this regulatory framework that's never really been dealt with before. So I have nothing to announce tonight, but this is something that the city is working on actively to find a way to ensure that we can all use the roads and infrastructure in a safe way.
Great, thanks.
Nice. So this is a question, Ryan, this may be for you and for the road president, but the question is, given all the benefits that were presented tonight about bike lanes, either do you or would it be helpful to go with other agencies, especially DOE, to talk about bike infrastructure?
Especially DOE?
Yeah, I think they meant Department of Education.
Department of Education. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're working very closely with the DOE on a lot of safe street infrastructure and education. That's literally the job that Kim has at DOT, and we do a lot of work with them. There's education. There's trying to figure out and identify safe environments around the schools to continue to build on the success of a lot of the open streets that we've seen during COVID. I think that one of the things we're trying to do mostly a lot of this year and last year at DOT was really leaning into the pedestrianization of the city. We did that with Trigger Streets. We're doing that with Holiday Streets. We're going to continue to build on that, build on our open street successes. Like Berry Street, continue to work on that. So there's an opportunity to have DOE as a key stakeholder that and build on that relationship. But we're already doing a lot of that work, and we want to lean into that more.
I've got a few questions about enforcement. I'll read from a couple of them. Why are traffic laws not enforced? And in the rare instance they are, why so arbitrarily? Why does NYPD break so many traffic and parking laws? Another related question, the missing link in the panel is the NYPD, which has been unable or unwilling to enforce traffic laws. Woo! When are we going to have a civilian complaint mechanism to ensure a civilian complaint mechanism? NYC Council Transportation Committee has yet to take action despite large support from council members.
It's political will. It's political will. And I want to be very clear. We've had moderate, conservative, and liberal mayors throughout my lifetime. And it's political will. If they want to do it, they can send the NYPD to do enforcement. We got Gersh running around. Shout out to Gersh. But the point being is that the cops should be doing his job, not him. Not Gersh should be out there fixing license plates. And we have a huge issue. And I think it's a politically messy thing to do, even though I don't think it is. I think people believe going after car drivers or just enforcing the law on vehicles is a political landmine. it isn't. But enforcement happens with political will. If you had a leader in place that would be willing to ask the NYPD to actually do the enforcement, it will be done. And we haven't had that. So this is not on us. Nobody in this panel. You could put somebody in the NYPD here. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's at the top. Mayor Adams needs to tell NYPD.
Yeah, I love that answer. I will say I have seen the NYPD is responsible to the PCCs, the precinct community councils. I've seen, the Upper East Side ladies go and complain about the delivery drivers since the 90s and the 2000s. Say the delivery bikers are on the sidewalk, and then the NYPD's out there giving tickets from those precinct community councils. So, they're still hosting those precinct community councils, and it's almost like it's a mini community board, right, where people are saying what the top issues in that precinct is, and that can kind of shape how a precinct reacts to things.
We just need to do it right. We gotta be very careful with community precinct councils. They do not take well for folks to just come in, have one issue and make it the priority issue and try to put the NYPD to put resources. Talk to Ms. Johnson. Talk to the folks that are already there. Do it through them. Have a conversation. See if they buy it, and let them pitch it to the police officers because they've been there for 30 years on the precinct council. They've been there for 25 years and they're well respected. So when you organize, think about the people that are already there and organize up, don't organize through. And I think that could be very helpful.
Another question from the audience.
Yes, summer streets are an amazing opportunity for families to walk and bike, but this is currently only in Manhattan. Can we get this in Brooklyn and Queens in 2023?
Obviously, I want it. Donovan Richards, the Queensborough president, and I wrote a joint letter to the Department of Transportation. We are going to be doing some type of input session because we don't know exactly where that street would be. Because we want it to be long, we want it to be, something that we want to beat Manhattan pretty much. We want to have the longest street in the city. So we will be doing that and presenting it to the Department of Transportation. They've shown interest in the conversations I've had. How fast we can get it, this summer is only like 5 months away, 4 months away. That seems like a normal amount of time for that to happen. I don't know how long it takes for them to plan it, but we want it. If you guys give us any ideas, we would definitely love to support it on that.
Yeah, it's something that we're actively reviewing internally, and so we saw the letter from both of our presidents, and I'll just say that we're continuing to, the commissioner every day is telling us that we need to continue to reimagine public space in the city, and that's the largest space of public space in the city is our roadways. So every day we're tasked with we have to reimagine this public space, and looking forward to having this continued conversation with our presidents.
Is there any specific resource that the Department of Transportation needs to make that happen outside of shutting it down? Like, I just want to know what you need.
So I mean, it's a manpower issue. It's in terms of the work coordinating the NYPD and other agencies in order to shut down, open up a street rather, for people. So I think it's really just about the coordinating piece and having the financial resources to assist that in order to do that. It's not something that's like pre-lined in our budget. So we have to find a way to coordinate all the agencies and all the stakeholders on this to make it a reality. But we'd love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I have to say I'm sort of like hyperventilating thinking about the staff that already helped with the New York City Marathon and Bike New York and all the events and the demand for open streets and the commitment that the New York City DOT team has to do it equitably, which might mean supporting open streets events in neighborhoods that their events don't end up on Twitter, or they might not get seen by activists, but there's been such a commitment to equity that these things are happening. But you don't want to just close the street and then create enemies. There's all the programming that you want to have to go with it, because it is a tremendous opportunity, but you need to know like what will land in that community. Is it cultural program? What kind of cultural programming? Is it physical activity program? What kind of physical activity program works in those communities? The last thing we want is to like stamp you know, a plain vanilla Park Avenues, summer streets on, a neighborhood in Brooklyn. How are we doing on time? Are we ready for the lightning round or a couple more audience questions?
One more question,
All right.
a family question. What would you tell the 7-year-old child who wants to ride a bike or jump on the back of the parent's bike?
Let's start with our non-elected officials, giving some advice, some peer-to-peer advice. So we'll start with you, Emily.
I always say just do it. Someone has to. I mean, I've been asked this question by colleagues, and I say, like, somebody has to be the person that's going to do it. So go for it.
I mean, I'm fortunate that I learned to ride a bike when I was a kid, so I was able to teach my kids in the parks. But I think I would point to learn to ride programs for kids and for adults as a way to learn, because not everybody has that opportunity to learn from their family members.
Yes. And any advice you give?
I'm losing the fight at home, so I don't have to advice.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you some advice.
After today, I feel like I'm better prepared.
So how about starting on Sunday mornings when they're going to sleep? So time of day is a strategy to start to build your comfort.
My school is 4 blocks away, and I'm petrified. So I think we can figure it. He's on a scooter right now. He's on the sidewalk. To get him on a bike on the street, I gotta see my team. So I have no advice. Take care. Just do it.
Yeah.
If I do it, I'll put it on Twitter and I'll
You gotta find a friend, you know?
Ryan?
I think leaning into the open spaces that we have, like open streets, a great opportunity to get out there and just sort of ride around. I know I always see during the marathon, people going out on 4th Avenue and just riding down 4th Avenue before the runners come. It's a great opportunity to just sort of teach your kids how to ride a bike. It's fun. And well, Emily, just do it. It's fun. Do it on the sidewalk. You know, if your kids just ride on the sidewalk and figure it out. It's fun.
Awesome. All right, we have just a few final lightning round questions. So 1 or 2 words. I'll ask a question. Answer, and we'll go to the next question. You ready? Ready. Okay. Best street in Brooklyn to ride on?
Bergen.
Come back to me.
I'm agreeing with Bushwick.
I'm gonna go Flatbush between the park and Botanic Garden. Thanks to Plaza.
Nice.
Plaza Park West.
Prospect Park West. All right. Mittens or gloves?
Gloves.
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 Ooh, I'm the wimpy one with this cold pants. All right. Parking inside or outside? Yeah.
Inside?
Outside.
3 stolen bikes outside.
It's a combo, inside and outside.
Okay. All right. The age when your child will be, was, or would be allowed to ride alone in Brooklyn. When would you let the child? Like there's the 11-year-old rides a bus. You know, I think we're like 11. You let your kid ride transit to school. What age would we let your child ride in Brooklyn right now?
I think 4th grade, that's when they can walk to school. 5th grade.
Maybe 16.
Middle school, so 7th grade? 6th grade, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd say 6th grade.
All right. Okay. You're biking with kids. They're on their own bikes. You bike in front of them, back of them, or alongside of them.
Depends on whether you're at the intersection.
You look at Hilda? What's the answer, Hilda? It depends. But I guess the person beside them, box them in.
Box them in.
Typically in front or the side.
I always go kind of from the back and then off to the left. So like an angle.
Like 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. Got it.
I'm your wingman.
Awesome. All right. The top season for biking, multiple choice. Fall, winter, spring, summer.
All season.
I'll teach material here. Oh, come on.
Fall.
Me too.
Also
Gotta love New York in the fall.
Well, it's good, you don't sweat as much.
I'll go fall too.
All right. Okay. Our last lightning round question: the favorite place to bike to in Brooklyn? Brooklyn's so filled with amazing places. Where do you love to? It's a nice spring day. Where would you love to go on a bike ride to? Restaurant, a park, point of interest.
Come back to me.
All right.
I really love Shirley Chisholm Park and it's really
It's a tough one, but Prospect Park, it just, anything in Prospect Park is awesome.
Wherever my kids are playing soccer, so.
Anything?
I really like biking through the Brooklyn Bridge Park. It feels like a real forest, like legit.
That is a nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to use Brooklyn Bridge Park.
Anyone Coney Islands?
Coney Island is awesome, but there's a lot of bumps on the road there. You gotta really traverse.
Yeah.
Coney Island is awesome.
Yeah, you gotta.
Ocean Parkway bike path is a lot of work.
So as we wrap up, that's a great segue to. We have a lot of homework based on this conversation. We heard loud and clear that people need to feel safe, and we need to continue to increase our investment in safe streets. There might be particular kinds of investments, whether that's school streets and bike boulevards. Bring that in the toolbox up to the level that protected bike lanes have gotten over the years, and then we want to make sure this is done equitably. And so, the financial cost that a knee bike that can carry families and groceries, it's out of reach for many people right now, but I'm sure the demand and desire is there. So we heard a lot. I want to thank the panel for being up here, for taking the questions, for having the courage to ride or to have the conversations to ride. Thank you everyone for coming, and let's close with one final thank you to the amazing organizer the woman who put organize in the word organize.
Yes.
Having my right. Is there anything I left out, Kathy, since you did 95% of the organizing, I did 5? All right, we're done. Thanks for coming.